Hey, 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 you know what day it is. Bringing you a quick summary of this week's Our Swipes. We are at episode 9, and I'll be honest, it feels like such a slow death. These podcasts are so painful. Anyhow, this week's episode, Megan conned Melanie Hobson and makeup mogul Victoria Jackson to address the B word, stereotype. I meant archetype. So I'm not going to torture you having to listen to her irritating, grating voice, but I would like to read the beginning of this podcast because it's just so inauthentic and fake. So Megan begins the podcast by saying, "At this point in the series, I think we've established that I spent a lot of time in front of the TV growing up. I loved movies and shows. I had my favorite programs. And as we continue to unearth with archetypes, many of them can be influenced by pop culture and by the media. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, my generation, we were raised with television in the same way that this generation is raised with social media. But we didn't have that then. There was no Instagram or TikTok. You couldn't even record shows unless you had a blank VHS tape that you could race to queue up at the exact time so you'd hope not to miss your favorite show. For Gen Z listeners, you're going to have to Google, or I guess TikTok, what I'm even talking about. But for those of you who remember these days, you'll also remember the shows that you were always ready for. Now, for me, this was Jeopardy. Megan is delusional if she thinks that Generation Z is listening to this shit. And once again, Megan's trying really hard to make people think she's smart by going off about Jeopardy again. Jeopardy was my favorite show growing up, and I would eat my dinner on a TV tray in front of the screen, watching each category and clue with bated breath and intense focus, trying to absorb whatever facts they were firing off in the form of a question. My obsession with this show was so deep. You guys, when Alex Trebek passed away, I started to receive texts of condolence. I didn't know him, but everyone who knew me knew how meaningful Jeopardy and its host were as a daily part of my life. This love of facts extended into my love of words, etymology, grammar, admiring people with expansive vocabularies. I was, and I still am, a word nerd. This is so laughable. Does she not realize she looks like such a jackass? Claiming that she's some word genius. If she really was intelligent, she would recognize that she has been using the word archetypes wrong for the last 9 podcasts, and this just makes her look even that much more dumb. What's even more comical about it is that Megan's vocabulary is so limited. In almost every podcast so far, she's used the word ripple effect, layers, visceral. I believe reckoning will come up at some point, compassion. It's just so redundant and so repetitive. And if she thinks that using big words is going to make her look smart, well, it actually makes her look that much more ignorant because she doesn't even use them properly. So after she tells this story, which has no relevance to what the actual podcast is about, she then jumps into saying, "And to that point, I think of many words that begin with, oh, I don't know. Let's just go with the letter B. Beautiful, brilliant, beguiling, blissful, bedazzling. And yet, when you hear someone say the B word, I think we're all clear that none of those words that I just said is what they're talking about. It's referring to instead, you know what? I'll just let someone else lead the charge here. This is so contrived. Like she knew she was going to be talking about the word bitch, but she wanted to play it off as if, oh, it just so happened to be the word we're going to talk about, but I can't say it because I am holier than thou, because I never swear. Desperately trying to come across as sweet goody two-shoes Meg, who's never swore, who's so innocent and so naive. Let me remind you that Meghan has the mouth of a truck driver, and she has openly admitted that she's trying to cut back on swearing. Here in this TIG blog, back in 2016, she had made a resolution to stop swearing, but it doesn't seem to have worked. And last week's impromptu call with her mother, where she's like, "Oh, sugar, it's my mom. Give me a break. Just shut up, Meghan. Just shut up." The more she speaks, the more she gives us reason to think she should be institutionalized. So, this image that Meghan Markle is forcing down our throats now is a facade of this goody two shoes, Betty Crocker wife cooking dinner for her man. So, when he comes home, she has it ready for him, who doesn't swear, who is so perfect. And the reason why she's doing this is she's going to the Midwest shortly. Indiana is a state where the women there are very much grounded in family. And yes, they don't swear very much. They don't swear like how we in New York swear. And that, I think, is the angle that she's trying to get, because she knows that demographic know nothing about her. And once again, with this flopcast, I found myself lost with the messaging. Aside from Meghan using this flopcast as her own therapy session to feel better about herself. So, this image that Meghan Markle is forcing down our throats now is a facade of this goody two shoes, Betty Crocker wife cooking dinner for her man. So, when he comes home, she has it ready for him, who doesn't swear, who is so perfect. And the reason why she's doing this is she's going to the Midwest shortly. Indiana is a state where the women there are very in it. She ties the word bitch to the word difficult and starts going on about if a woman is difficult or being assertive, then they are called these names. And we know that she is referring to being called Duchess Difficult. And this is all part of her legal defense, too, if you think about this. Next year, she's going to have to go head to head with her sister. And the image or her brand right now is in the toilet. If they were to pick a jury today and the trial was now, she would lose, because she has been exposed as a manipulative liar and has done things that were deceitful and hurtful to other people. So she cannot put this off, and maybe this attempt is to really rebrand her. In each podcast, she has used these words that she at one point has been called, and what seems to be happening, especially in today's, is that she is reframing the way people are using the words. So she is looking at it now that, oh, being called a bitch, bad bitch, means something positive, which, you know what, is not working. We have to really, address the elephant in the room, is that she's a bitch, which means that she is a bully in a skirt, because that's what it is. If she doesn't like that B word, we can use bully as another B word for that. At one point, I believe that Melody did take a slight little dig at Meghan by saying, when talking about asking questions, she says, "I find a lot of people try to hear themselves talk. So they try to show how smart they are. And they do that through statements." Well, folks, what is Meghan Markle notorious for? Making statements. She doesn't say anything profound and uses big words to show everybody how smart she is, but it's laughable because she uses these words in the wrong context, which outs her as being stupid and ignorant. And I know Meghan's team is watching this channel, so my words to you is that Christmas is coming up, so please all chip in and buy her a dictionary. And to Meghan's PR team, you might want to work with her on coming up with some new buzzwords. She's managed to ruin the words kindness, compassion, and empathy, as well as service. She's managed to ruin the words kindness, compassion, and empathy, as well as service, because she's such a hypocrite. And what's really sad is that these two strong women that were on her flopcast today, they most likely are not going to get the attention that they deserve, because already they have chosen to do this with Meghan Markle. And Meghan Markle, she is just a lying, deceitful person. So who's going to really take what she has to say seriously, let alone listen and understand what the other two ladies are saying seriously because of the fact that they are associated with her? I don't understand why they would agree to be on this show. Perhaps maybe for Melody's because she sees Megan as a Black woman and is there to support another Black woman. And the other one probably doesn't know the depths of Megan's deception and manipulation. Perhaps maybe it was just for the exposure to the charity that she had created. And I don't even remember. This is how disinterested I was about hearing Megan talk about this charity that this woman, had started and has been a champion for. If I want to learn about this woman, I will go to her website and read about it. But to hear Meghan Markle tell people the story of this woman and her charity, I just was not interested. And maybe it's because I'm sick and tired of hearing her voice. It's just so irritating, as well as her disingenuous attitude and fake approach, trying to be something that she is not. There was one point in this podcast that struck a nerve. Megan says, because if you look at this word difficult, it comes up for a lot of women in work and life. I mean, I was just chatting with my girlfriends recently, and I was asking them for the show, what are the sort of archetypes you think we should discuss? And almost immediately, unequivocally, they all jumped to difficult. That's the word. You have to have a talk about difficult, they said. It gets thrown around so casually now. And as a woman, my friend said to me, there's a certain point when you come to terms with the fact that not everyone's going to like you. The goal can't be for everyone to like you, but the goal can be for them to respect you. This bitch! I don't think Megan understands the difference between being difficult and being an asshole, because the latter is what we're really not liking about Meghan Markle. There's no way you can like someone or respect someone when they are abusive to elderly people. I'm sorry, if you want respect, then first start with your own family, respect your elders, and don't be such a high maintenance cunt, okay? There, I'm not using the word bitch anymore. You're going to be called a cunt from now on. Now, the very end of the podcast, Megan does her closing statement, and she says, reframing, reclaiming, or simply relinquishing, that's the dance I feel we did on this episode. You see, as we started that, for some women, it's all about embracing and reclaiming the B-word, taking the power out of it, maybe even using comedy to diffuse it. As for others, it's standing in their knowing and being unaffected by the implication of the word or its cousin, difficult. Powering through in spite of the pain or even the insecurity it may cause, and sometimes using the dig for drive, getting them closer to their goal in building a business, a career, or as in the case with both Victoria and Melody, building a legacy with focus, comfortable in their directness, with confidence and with kindness. Ugh. I remember when I was a kid and people would say, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. Well, that was just a flat out lie. Of course names hurt. But what happens when we use that pain to feel purpose? When the B word is shouted with one intent, but you're able to let it go and remind yourself of all the other words with a B that better describe you. Beautiful, blessed, brilliant, beguiling, blissful, bedazzling. Take your pick. Be that person. Gee, thanks, Megan. You forgot to add bigot and bully to your list. Anyhow, this was the podcast. I really could not go through the different sections of it because it just was not interesting. In fact, the sensitive topics that they cover fell on deaf ears because Megan had this approach that was so inauthentic and disingenuous that I started to tune out. And I feel like that was a disservice to those women because Megan managed to dilute it. I will leave the transcript below in the description if you want to read the full thing. Covering the word bitch was designed to address her critics, especially from the bullying allegations as well as Tom Bower's book. The UK was calling her difficult to be polite, but in actuality, the woman is a cunt. By definition, the word bitch is defined as a vulgar, malicious woman. I don't see how that has difficult anywhere in it. We can point to instances where she has been malicious and quite vulgar and disrespectful. If it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, then it must be a duck or a bitch. And on that note, let me know your thoughts, guys, below. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will be back with more content. In the meantime, be safe. Bye.
I was such a fraud.